I just want to start by saying that what I'm going to share with you is not easy. It's from my personal experience through adopting children internationally. And over the years, understanding the corruption behind what one of my kids, well, two of my kids have been through, and what other kids are going through, and what families are going through. And so I know there's people in my circle that are not going to like this video. But I have this tattoo, fight for justice. And if there's anyone I should be fighting for, it should be my own children, right? And so this is going to be like multiple videos. In fact, this is going to be something that I'm talking about fairly regularly moving forward, because the only way to fight corruption is to bring awareness. Or that's not the only way, but that's the start. I actually teach the 5 A's to ascend, and the very first A is awareness, because nothing can be done, no action can be taken, no adjusting of mindsets, no accountability can happen without first being aware. And so for those that don't know my story, I sponsored a little boy through an orphanage when I was in my mid-20s. And I still talk to him occasionally today, a sweet boy named Albert, who's now an adult and living well. And when Albert was supposed to be adopted, which that I don't think wound up happening, but he was going to be adopted, and I was presented a little boy through an orphanage. And they said, we're looking for a sponsor for this little boy. I was told that this little boy, who's now, for you guys that know my story, now my son Malachi, okay, I was told that this little boy was abandoned by his mother. His father had died, and his mother couldn't take care of them and abandoned him. And at the time, I only knew of his story. Later, there's a sibling that comes into play. And I want to tell you why, first of all, that I'm going to share this story, and why I'm going to be talking about this a lot more, is because I think a lot of people set out to do good things. My heart was to do a good thing, right? I was sponsoring a child. But again, back to awareness. When we're not aware of things, we can be very naive. We can be fooled easily. We can be manipulated, right? We can be told lies, bold-faced lies, and think that they're real, and they're not. And so this process, my son is now 19 years old. Okay, so my experience spans over the course of 15 years with this. And I've never spoken out. Once we got through, just to kind of give you a little overview, once we got through his adoptions, it was through the process of the day we adopted in Sierra Leone to bringing him home that there were red flags about certain things that didn't make sense to me. And through the years, there have been things uncovered and conversations with my children that I was lied to a lot. And come to find out, it's not just me, it's many families. And with this specific orphanage, which I'm not going to say their name, if you know who they are, you know who they are. But it's not just them, it's many orphanages that do the same thing. But with this specific orphanage, I know there's things on the inside that I know because people have left. And I know that there's corruption. And so I just, for sake of whatever, for those that know who they are, okay, what I'm speaking of is my personal experience and things that I know for fact, okay? None of it is speculation. All right, so my personal experience that I want to talk about, and the one thing I want to share with you guys, and again, it's for awareness, because we're in a very wealthy country, right? Americans, I don't know if you've ever heard of the white savior complex, okay? These are all terms like that I would hear. And when I went through the adoption process, we actually had to take some classes because it was an interracial adoption. So I adopted Black children and I'm a white woman. So we had to take certain classes and I learned what white privilege is, right? I'm a conservative politically. However, there is white privilege, okay? Right? And what that means is when a little white girl goes to a store versus a little Black girl, then the white girl has more dolls to choose from. Okay? It's stuff like that. But we all have equal opportunity. We all have opportunity in this world, in this country. But one thing about the whole idea of the white savior complex, when I heard this, I was like, that's not very nice. But I now understand it. It's that, Americans, it doesn't have to be white people, but Americans that are wealthy go into poor countries and think that we can do better for these kids than they can do themselves. Okay. We think sometimes that we're more educated. We might be. We think we're smarter, most of the time not. We think we know what's best, right? And most people come into this with very good intentions, right? I know people have taken mission trips over and helped kids in other countries. And I want everyone to know and hear my heart. There's one person I hold accountable, but outside of one person in my world, outside of that one person that I hold fully accountable for my experience, there's many people that are very good intentioned, and again, have no idea the corruption that lies beneath. Okay. And so if you're a person that took a trip to an orphanage and, I want you to know my heart. I've done all these things. Nothing is against anyone. Okay. Like I said, except one person. So, and so most people have good intentions. Some people have ill intentions that may have started out good. All right. So my quick story, and the one thing I want to share before, and just like I said, I need this to be the foundation for the things I'm going to be sharing in the future. But I want to share my screen real quick. Okay. This is from a website and it's about trafficking into orphanages. And the website is called, let me see, hold on one second. Walkfree.org, and it's about global slavery. Okay. And when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh. And I want you to know that it's not just me reading this and going, oh, some website said that what my kids experienced was modern day slavery. Okay. And only two of my kids. One of my children is a true orphan. Esther is a true orphan by true definition of an orphan. My other two boys that we adopted do not fall under that definition. And I'm going to talk about that. And so, where was I? Sorry, this is like nerve-wracking for me. This is a very vulnerable. This is not something I want to do. Okay. So trafficking into orphanages. Child trafficking into institutions, also referred to as orphanage trafficking, is described as the recruitment of children into residential care institutions for the purpose of profit and exploitation. This practice is linked to the funding of orphanages through private donations, volunteer tourism, mission trips, and other forms of fundraising. It's estimated that U.S. Christians, their organizations alone, donate approximately $3.3 billion to residential care each year. The practice of orphanage volunteering, people from high-income countries traveling abroad to helping children live in orphanages, also serves to provide continual income for the orphanage, as well as reduced labor costs for the care of the children. However, there's a grim downside to all of this. Although well-intentioned, these sources of financial and in-kind support undermine national efforts to support broader children protection and social welfare systems by creating a parallel system without official insight and accountability. This also creates a marketplace that can incentivize the expansion of orphanages and the establishment of new ones with the supply of funding and resources into orphanages, increasing the demand for children to be in them. There's evidence of children being deliberately recruited from vulnerable families to fill spaces in orphanages under the guise of better care and access to education. Once trafficked into orphanages, children are vulnerable to neglect, abuse, and exploitation. Orphanages that are run for profit have been found to operate under extremely poor conditions that drive down care costs, with evidence also pointing to children being kept deliberately malnourished, encouraging further donations, forced to interact with blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share at this point of that website. Okay. So my experience, and I'm just going to tell you my story, and then I'm going to end this video, and we'll talk more in the future. And I'm going to bring people on that are doing things right and share their stories and how, again, I want this to be about awareness and then opportunity to help if you want to. So we adopted 3 kids. Most of people new to my life don't know that because there's one kid we don't talk about. So we adopted 3 kids. We have Esther, who was truly an orphan, abandoned on the side of the street, physically disabled, no record of family anywhere. But we didn't meet her until we went to Africa. So I originally was sponsoring Mohammed Malachi. So Malachi was 4 years old. We'd Skype with him once a month. There was always an auntie next to him in the orphanage. We Skype with him once a month. We watched him grow up. One day, I felt like God was like, "That's your son." And I found out about the adoption process, found out he had an older brother. When I found out he had an older brother, I was hesitant. There was a lot of like sexual abuse in like my history, not like me personally, but like I've been around it a lot, and it's something I'm very sensitive to. And so my first reaction was like, oh, like an older boy, like he was older than Malachi, right? Like, is there any sexual abuse, history of sexual abuse? We were told that there's never been any reports of sexual abuse. This is such a good kid. He's so kind. He's so wonderful, blah, 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 blah. So then we move forward with the process of learning about these kids more and becoming like, going through the adoption process. It was a long process because Ebola hit. We were delayed in things. And anyway, we finally wound up moving forward. We went to visit the kids at the orphanage with a trip of 10 people, including the founder of the orphanage, in September of 2016. Is that right? And went over there, met Esther. My husband at the time was like, "That's my daughter. I want to take care of Esther." And we met Malachi and his brother. And we had an amazing experience. Loved it so much. Loved meeting them. Loved, the kids worshiping Jesus. Okay. I'm going to tell you the good parts too. Over there, love worshiping Jesus with the kids. And basically it's this one compound, you could call it, that's all fenced off for security. And the kids, go to school, they go to church, all within this compound, and basically play out front. There's a basketball area, and then this big like alleyway kind of thing where they kick something around, whatever they can find, as a soccer ball. And we felt good, and loved the kids and decided to come home and start the paperwork for all 3 kids. I also found out I was pregnant with Sloan that same weekend. That same week we were in Africa. So started the adoption process, and I want to fast forward to the first red flag for me. So fast forward to adoption day. I fly to Africa by myself. I had a little baby at home. Fly to Africa by myself to go adopt these kids. And I am told when I get there that Mohammed, Malachi, and Abubakar's mother will be there. And I was like, what? Their mom? Like, I knew their mom was alive, but my understanding was that she was completely no contact, dropped them off. We don't know where she is. And I remember going, what? Like, what? Well, yeah, the mother, we found their mother because I questioned it. We found their mother and she has to sign rights away. And you know that like feeling like this, something doesn't feel right, but you're like, but maybe I'm just nervous. I don't know because I didn't know any better, right? And so I'm like, oh, okay. So we get to court, and not only is their mother there, but their brother is there as well, their older brother. I didn't even know. And they hugged Malachi and Abubakar like they were friends. And I was so confused. And I asked Malachi, I said, how often do you see your family? And he goes, they come to visit. I've never been told this. I was told they had no contact with them. Then it's, hey, Wendy, but they can't afford to take care of them. They dropped them off. This is their choice, right? And again, awareness. I was ignorant to the reality, to the truth, to what should happen. What should have happened is a woman that can't take care of her children gets support to take care of her children, not gets told, let us take your kid and we'll handle it. Okay. Hindsight, knowledge. So that was my first like red flag. And then I'm all excited. It's done. You know, they say their goodbyes. And I will say this, the mother said, can you adopt my other children? Which she has 3 other kids and they're all adults. And I'm like, no, they're adults. Okay. So she wanted something good for her kids. Okay. So she did willingly give up rights to her kids. I just do want to make that clear. But I believe there was hindsight. I believe there was a lot of manipulation. Okay. So then second red flag, I'm all excited. We go take the kids to the beach and I have this beautiful picture of us on the beach and I go to post it on social media. And I'm told by the organization that runs the orphanage not to post on social media because the sponsors of my kids don't know yet. That was a big red flag. And let me tell you why. When I wrote checks to adopt my children, okay, by the time it was all said and done, I spent over $75,000 for these adoptions between travel, attorney's fees, my match fee, all the fees, okay? When I was matched with my children, I was paying for their full care. In my paperwork, what I'm paying for as part of my adoption fee is to be their sole financial provider while they're at the orphanage before I bring them home to the US. And I was told months after I was matched, to the point that I'm now in court adopting. Okay, so that process was probably 7 months, that you've been taking sponsorship dollars for my children that I'm financially supporting. I want you guys to hear me on that. That is child exploitation and that is corruption. We could just stop there. We could just stop there. So, red flag. I come home, I tell my husband at the time, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. We're paying for these kids. They're double dipping. Okay. So I sent an email and I said, we were told our dollars are going to this. There was never a response to that. All there was we're telling their sponsors now. Doesn't end there. That was in January. We go to pick them up in September of 2018. So now another 9 months has passed. We get the visas for our kids, or we didn't get them yet. I had to leave Africa because we couldn't get the visas for our kids. My husband at the time finally gets the visas for the kids. He's coming home. We want to post pictures. Again, I was told, do not post pictures. We haven't told their sponsors yet. So for over a year and a half. So for those of you that follow me, that you sponsored my kids, you were being robbed. Okay? Because you weren't sponsoring my kids. You were putting money into the bank account of that organization. All right? And I'm going to talk about other things, and I'm going to get hate, y'all. I'm going to get so much hate, but I don't care. I'm going to get attacked. My character's probably going to get attacked. There's probably going to be things said about me. But I'm a mother of these beautiful children, and I'll explain more. I want to end this video now because I don't have the emotional capacity to share the next part of the story. I want to share about what happened with our oldest son. But you guys, the reason I'm sharing this is not to bash people for no reason. My reason for sharing this is not to make anyone feel shame. My reason for sharing this is truly 100% to bring awareness, because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was a part of. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that my kids had a relationship with their mother. I didn't know. There's a lot of things I didn't know. We'll talk about more on that next time I go live. So if you guys want to help, if you want to learn more, please reach out to me. If you can relate, if you're somebody that is watching this and you're like, Wendy, I went through the same thing. Wendy, I had the same questions. I want to talk to you. Because what's happening is not okay. So anyway, I'm going to end it. Thank you guys for being with me. I know it's not fun stuff to talk about, but it's reality. And anyway, and I've got to fight for justice. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening in.